I'm Rose Garofano, your host, and today on UThink, we are honoured to be joined by Tracy Hall, the last victim of Hamish McLaren, one of the world's most notorious con men. In her book, The Last Victim, Tracy shares how a seemingly normal relationship, she met Max on a dating app in early 2016, revealed itself to be anything but, culminating in not just the betrayal of love, but the loss of over $317,000 of her life savings to an elaborate global scam spanning decades and 70 million across 6 countries. Drawing on her background as a senior marketing exec and keynote speaker, Tracy has turned heartbreak into advocacy, writing a book, speaking internationally, and helping others rebuild their lives after fraud and intimate betrayal.
And I missed a call from him, and I spent the rest of the day trying to get back in touch with him. And by that night, I was pretty worried. It was very unusual for us not to have constant contact throughout the day. By the next morning, I was pretty frantic. And so I called Bondi Police and I asked them to do a wellness check on him. And they asked me his name, how old he was, whether he had any mental health issues. None of that, I gave them all the details. And while they were off doing that, I received a call from a girlfriend of mine. It was pretty early in the morning and I just thought, that's a bit weird. And she said, "How are you?" And I said, "I'm really worried about Max. I haven't heard from him in 24 hours. I can't get in touch with him. Something's happened." And she said, "Trace, I'm going to send you a link to a news article and you're going to open it and you're going to call me straight back."
Join me as we explore the story behind the swiping, the psychology of con artists, and how Tracy transformed her trauma into purpose, becoming a leading voice in financial empowerment, intimate fraud awareness, and resilience. Before we begin, a quick note. This podcast may discuss sensitive topics that some listeners could find distressing. We aim to present information with accuracy and respect, but please be mindful of your own well-being while listening. If you or someone you know needs support, please check the episode notes for relevant resources.
UThink is sponsored by Vuvali, a living experience where you can work, learn, play and connect. Visit vuvali.com.au.
I'm Rose Garofano, and over the years of being an educator and connector, I've had the privilege of talking with a vast array of incredible individuals who inspire and create meaningful impact across the globe through their words and actions. UThink is my opportunity to engage with these remarkable people to bring out the best in them. My hope is that through these conversations, we can all be inspired to achieve our own greatness and make a meaningful impact in our world. Well, welcome, Tracy, to the UThink podcast. I've actually been looking forward to this particular podcast interview for a while now because it's of interest to me as a woman, but also of a woman of a certain age, I suppose, with friends who are out there who've become vulnerable in their life based on personal circumstances such as having a divorce or being in multiple, relationships that haven't, sustained. And my brother's there at the moment. He's just separated, so he's out there in the dating game. And it's very interesting to me because I suppose there's a part of this world that is not so good. And I'm one of those people that wants good in the world. So when I hear about stories like this, it breaks my heart because I think, oh, no. Yeah. And I want you today to be able to share your story, which is raw and real, so that so many others can be aware and maybe be protected in the process. Yeah. And we were lucky enough to be given your name by a wonderful person called Catherine, who I work with. And she said, she gave me a list of all these amazing people. And I went down the list and I was like, oh, definitely. Tracy's definitely going to be one person I would love to connect with. So Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Thank you for having me.
And it's really going to be all you now. I'm just going to hand over and start with a little bit with who you are and, who's Tracy Hall. Yeah. And maybe even leading into how you got into where you got into in terms of your relationship status, in terms of getting back online.
Yeah, 100%. So my name is Tracy Hall. These days I'm an author, a speaker, an educator and advocate in the space of scams and intimate fraud. And previous to that, I was a marketing executive. So I spent 27 years in marketing roles for global tech. So that's my corporate background. But these days I spend all of my time educating and spreading awareness on scams and intimate fraud, financial vulnerability, overcoming adversity and things like this based on my experience.
And
So,
that's something that's so important. We need people to stand up and say, not just educate, but advocate. I love that word because I think it's so powerful. When we advocate, that means we're fighting for others. Yeah.
There are a lot of people in my situation that would never be able to talk about what's happened to them. And I hear it every single day. People come to me and say, something similar happened to me, but I haven't told anyone, or I'm not comfortable sharing it, but I'll talk to you.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I feel like I'm on the right path, because I do think there is a need to have these conversations regardless of how confronting they can be sometimes, and raw and vulnerable, sometimes full of shame and embarrassment. But, we need to have these conversations. This happens all the time.
I know. And in the research for this episode, I asked the question, how many people are affected by fraud, intimacy fraud? And we'll define that in a moment.
Yeah.
And the research said more women than men, 50.3% of women and 43-point-something% of men. But then it said, very cleverly straight after it, it said that's because women are more likely to report it than men. So we actually don't have accurate numbers. And so this is not just a woman issue.
No.
Intimacy fraud affects
Yeah.
everybody, male, female, young, middle-aged and old.
That's right.
So those statistics, while still to me 50% is high, it's probably not accurate.
It's exactly right. And if we look more broadly beyond romance fraud or relationship fraud, scams in general, what I hear from the banks is that the most common person in Australia to be scammed right now is a man in his 60s. So yes, women probably report more. Women will naturally talk about it more. It's not because we trust more. It's not because we're more naive or anything like that. What we actually see is men are losing more money. They're just not reporting as much. Now, maybe men have more money to lose, especially in that older age bracket. But look, there is a scam for everyone. One of the biggest, most aggressive scams that we are seeing right now is teenage sextortion.
Yes, and actually I had a guest talk about that just recently from your town. So her name was Tracy Adams, and she talked about that, and it's actually on the rise. It's scary.
Oh, it is one of the most aggressive and fastest growing scams, and teenagers in more affluent countries like Australia, like Canada, like the US are being targeted by these criminal groups that are operating out of foreign countries, primarily Nigeria, and they are just, it's a honeypot because they're highly digital. These kids have a bit of money in their bank account, and their behaviours online are, may not be what you and I would do.
They're susceptible to it.
It's very normal. It's very normal for them to have these very hyper intimate conversations very quickly, and be asked to send some intimate imagery, and that very, very quickly turns into financial extortion.
And we know that no matter the age, I think people, shame is the greatest blocker from reporting.
That's right.
People think it's shameful to say I was taken advantage of financially or emotionally or sexually. We know that across all types of crime that shame will stop people from reporting. But if we don't report and we don't talk about it, then more people are vulnerable to it.
That's right.
To being scammed. And I am always on the alert for scams. You get text messages almost every day, and a phone call and a link that comes on, and I'm aware of those things. But I look around me and I think, my mum, who's 80, and luckily she lives with me, but she almost got scammed because she thought to click on some link was going to be important, and she hesitated and said, I'll just wait for my daughter to come home, luckily, because it would have opened up her phone and the vulnerability of So we know that it's out there, and it's a hit and miss, isn't it? They just send it out and then.
Yeah, some are highly targeted, and AI has allowed that because this is not just some opportunistic person sitting in their basement. This is organised crime.
I know they're called farms, aren't they?
Scammer farms, scammer compounds. Pig butchering is another term that is used for compounds that are operating out of Southeast Asia. It's not a nice term. A lot of people don't like using it.
Yeah.
But it is a term that stems from a Chinese word, xiaozupan, which actually literally translates to killing pig game.
Wow.
And it essentially refers to the fact that the scammer is fashioning up their victim like a pig, ready to to take everything from them, bleed them dry, basically.
Yeah.
So these are big criminal organizations. It's organized crime, so it's highly sophisticated. They have technology, they have playbooks, they have data, they have systems, they have thousands of employees who are often victims of human trafficking themselves because they have been lured into these compounds under a false employment pretense, and they're imprisoned in these cities, and they are tortured if they don't meet their scam KPIs.
Wow.
So you have victims on both sides of the coin here that is being, puppeteered by organised crime. So AI is making it highly sophisticated. So they have technology where they can scrape behavioural and societal information off the internet that means that they can target a scam that you are more likely to be vulnerable to because they have information about you.
Well, it's a bit like Google listens to everything, right? So you say a word and all of a sudden it comes up on your socials, right? And I think they're using the same technology. They're looking at your patterns of behaviour, what you're scrolling, and isn't it how many seconds you pause on something that indicates an interest or a potential, avenue to explore?
Yeah.
So they're profiling you.
Yeah, or maybe even information that you've proactively posted. So you've got a job, you've lost a job, you've bought a house, you've had a baby, somebody's ill, you're going through a divorce, maybe something happened with your child. This information actually gives them power to target a scam that they know that you'll be more vulnerable to. And this is all done with AI. So it's done within seconds, and then they double down. So the scam seems more relevant. It seems more more likely that it could be true. And then there are the others, which is spray and pray, and that's basically, where there's been potentially a data breach and they have information and they just send it out. And, if they're sending out millions and millions of text messages, likely there'll be a percentage of people that will click and that will go through that process. So it's
as you just
very
said,
worthwhile
it's
it's doing for them.
Prolific.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk more deeply about this idea that there are people out there who aren't in the farms and the compounds who but have the same attitude, which is to really look for any point of entry. I won't call it a vulnerability because it's not vulnerable to be divorced.
No.
It's a life circumstance. Right?
It's situational.
And loneliness is not a vulnerability. But what happens from that is there is a desire to want to connect or there's a desire to want to meet somebody new in your life and share that next part of your phase or phase of life. And so they're opportunistic.
Yes.
So they are looking for people who are desiring different things in their life or wanting connections. And so to me, I think almost that's worse because there is a sense of at least the other people are hiding behind computers and they don't have a face. So this next level that we're going to go into is it has a face.
Yeah, it's intimate.
Yeah. And they are drawing people in, selling something that's not true, and that's when we become vulnerable. That's where the vulnerability becomes.
Yeah, they're exploiting those parts of human psychology that we all have. And like you said, it's not vulnerable to want genuine connection and love. It's not vulnerable to be tired after having a baby or being jet lagged because you're a global executive. None of those things are vulnerabilities. It's the exploitation of that situation that is the crime.
That's right.
Yeah.
So let's wind the clock back. Take me back to you were newly single in your life. And you were probably doing as many of my friends were doing and are doing at the moment, swiping left and right.
Yeah.
I have to say it's my greatest fear. It's as in I'm in a relationship, but I often say to my friends, I would dread having to do that because not knowing the person, you don't meet them anymore like in a pub.
No.
You don't meet them at a family barbecue or a friend's barbecue or at work. You're not having these more natural encounters. You're relying on a picture with a profile. The profile might be inaccurate in terms of their beliefs and what they stand for. It could be, so you're there.
It can be anything they want it to be.
Yeah,
basically.
so you're there. You've gone looking and thinking, there's a possibility of making a connection again in my life.
Well, I'd been divorced or separated from my husband for about a year. So I was really just, focusing on work, getting my head around single parenting. I had a really big job at eBay at the time. I was busy. But I did get to that point where I thought, you know what, I would like to meet someone.
Have a
who-
coffee, go to a movie.
Yeah, go have a glass of wine on a Friday night or do some activities that I like doing. And, you know, I felt like I was ready for that to be part of my life again. And of course, you know, like you said, you don't meet people in the old-fashioned ways.
You don't anymore.
So it is kind of what people do. And it was, you know, at times soul-destroying and very time-consuming. But I
hear that.
I did keep putting myself out there because I knew that some awesome guy wasn't going to fall through my lounge room ceiling while I was watching maths on Monday night. You know, I knew I had to. This is part of,
And also,
you know,
ironically, maths.
I know. Don't mind a bit of maths.
But, you know, you're talking
yeah.
about dating, and that's
Yeah.
like the worst case scenario.
I
This is my
know.
second greatest fear, ever having to just be married to someone you don't know.
Don't know. Yeah, so I went on the apps and met a few people, went on a few dates, and then I swiped right on a man by the name of Max Tavita, and he was 41. He was the chief investment officer for a family office. He lived in Bondi. He surfed. He ran. He had great banter. We had, you know, really good conversations. He could spell. He used correct grammar in his messages.
I love that. You had a little tick list going. That would have been one on my tick list as well.
Yeah.
He used grammar in his text.
I
You're
know.
in.
How low is the bar? Oh, they know how to spell.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we just sort of started this slow kind of conversation and relationship, and we met after about 3 weeks and went for dinner, and I guess you could say our relationship grew quite slowly and organically, and I was a single mum, so I didn't have a lot of time to give.
So let me just say, to me, that doesn't sound like a red flag. You know, if they pushed really quickly,
yeah.
friends of mine say that when a person that they're trying to talk to is pushy, it immediately makes them nervous.
Yeah.
So your relationship with Max,
Yeah.
let's call him Max,
Yeah, he was.
was evolving naturally, as you said, organically. I love that word. So,
yeah.
so that to me, you're not feeling any concern.
No, and he fully understood my situation. He was very busy with his high-level job. He knew that I had a lot on my plate with my job, so he was very patient and, you know, understanding. We spoke a lot on message. We called a lot. And then we finally met and we started our relationship in real life. So we'd go for meals. It was probably only every second weekend that we could see each other, maybe once a week.
And did he say he had children or?
No, he didn't have children. He was very open and honest. He seemed very vulnerable with the information that he gave me. Over time, we got to know each other, you know, really well. He was a great conversationalist. He was a great listener. And yeah, so our relationship, I kind of described it at the time to my friends. It was like a slow burn. And that was good for me. I was comfortable with that because I had just come out of a marriage. I was getting my head around my new life. I was very stretched in terms of my time and things like that. So, you know, for me, it felt very comfortable and very natural. He was very, you know, super athletic, like loved running. We loved being at the beach. We loved surfing. We'd go for walks. It was very wholesome, I guess you could say. You know, the odd dinner here and there, or we just hang out and watch the sport or, you know, whatever it was that we were doing.
So nothing at the time to make you worry?
No, I mean, over the time, and we were together for nearly 18 months, some of the stories he told me were very big. And of course, when they're all condensed down into a short snippet like what we would be talking about, they do seem quite ridiculous. But at the time, when they come sentence at a time over months, it all just sort of adds up and there's this confirmation that he is who he says he is. And, you know, there was sort of everywhere I looked, there was confirmation that he was a chief investment officer for a family office. So there were Bloomberg monitors in his apartment that he was constantly doing trades on. There were phone calls that I overheard to his CEO and to his back office where he would ask them to execute the trades against the strategy that I put in place. He sent me a report every Friday, a report that he wrote that went to the family office clients. There was mail in his letterbox, official letters that were addressed to Max Tavita, knowing that I would pick them up from the mailbox on my way up to his apartment. So his name matched. You know, there was an office he went to.
So did he plan all this? Like, was this
100%.
Like, this is not just ad hoc. This is actually
Calculated.
systematic.
Yeah. And it created what I describe as sort of like there was this movie that confirmed to me that what he was telling me about who he was and the life he had and the job he had and his history and everything about him all matched and it all lined up. So, and I had no reason not to believe him. I was not suspicious at all. So I didn't dig any deeper than, everything confirmed that it was what it looked to be until it wasn't.
So can you go there to that moment? How did that unfold for you? So up until this point, you said 18 months, things were going pretty well.
Yeah, we took
You had some moments, you said, where he may have said a story, you thought, wow, that sounds a bit much.
Yeah.
But when you're everything else, when the majority of your relationship seems okay, the little bit big muches probably seems so insignificant.
Or I didn't know if he was like kind of joking or just being, I don't know, like some of the things I thought, oh, that's a bit weird. But then I guess life moves very quickly.
Yeah.
And you move on to the next thing or the conversation moves on or, you fall asleep looking at a piece of information that you're trying to confirm on Google and you can't find it and it's 11:30 at night and you put your phone beside the bed and 6 a.m. the next morning you're up again and you're off. You know? So
and you've got children and as you said,
big job,
a
yeah.
big job. So all of these other things, not like you've got plenty of time just to sit around and wonder.
No, and I one of my vulnerabilities, if you want to call it that, is I was really stretched at the time. I was tired and I was stretched. And he played that to his advantage because I didn't have time to go and, check out every single thing he said to me. And I'm not that person anyway. I take people on face value. You tell me your name's Rose, I don't ask you for your license to confirm that. I just believe that that is true.
But most of us do.
Yeah, and why would
I think
you otherwise?
99% of people would never say, I don't believe you.
Of course.
Unless you're like a police officer working in cyber
I
security.
don't even think it,
Yeah.
So
it's natural for us to believe what people say to us.
Of course, because if we had to sense check every piece of information that came across our path, our lives wouldn't operate. Like we have to take mental shortcuts.
Yeah.
And this is the psychology of scams as well because people prey on that. They exploit that shortcut that your brain does to get to the next point, So anyway, we had, almost 18 months of a relationship. We had taken family holidays with my mum and my daughter up north. We were looking to buy property together in Byron Bay. We had looked at property. We had just been to Byron the weekend before. I was speaking at a women's conference and he came up to support me. Like he was a massive cheerleader. Like he was amazing. And it was all in an effort to kind of build this relationship that we built. And I got back from Byron. He came back the next day and I missed a call from him. And I spent the rest of the day trying to get back in touch with him. And by that night, I was pretty worried. It was very unusual for us not to have constant contact throughout the day. By the next morning, I was pretty frantic. And so I called Bondi Police and I asked them to do a wellness check on him. And they asked me his name, how old he was, whether he had any mental health issues, none of that. I gave them all the details. And while they were off doing that, I received a call from a girlfriend of mine. It was pretty early in the morning and I just thought, that's a bit weird. And she said, how are you? And I said, I'm really worried about Max. I haven't heard from him in 24 hours. I can't get in touch with him. Something's happened. And she said, Trace, I'm going to send you a link to a news article and you're going to open it and you're going to call me straight back. And of course, immediately I just went to catastrophe. I'm like, there's been a surfing accident, a shark attack, something's happened, he's dead.
I would my God.
So I was just like, he's dead, right? He's dead. And she said, no, he's not dead. Just open the link and call me back. And so I opened the link and it was a Crime Stoppers video of him being arrested outside of his Bondi Beach apartment. And his face was all blurred out, but of course I knew it was him.
You recognised him.
So I called Bondi Police back and I said, he's not dead. He's been arrested. And they said, yes, we know. But the person that you told us that lives at that address, his name, how old he is, everything you told us about that man is not the man that lives at that address. I said, yeah, it is, because I just spent 18 months of my life with him. That's who it is. And they said, no, it's not. You need to call the detectives and you need to go to the police station. So that is when I found out his real name, and that is when I found out he had stolen my life savings, and that is when I found out he had swindled 15 victims out of $7.6 million.
Wow, that's a lot. So when you say swindled your life savings, was he getting you to invest into shares or portfolios that he was promoting?
No, he had essentially groomed and guided me to set up a self-managed super fund.
Correct. Okay.
And he had used all of the confirmations that he had presented to me about his line of work and how great he was at, managing the family office clients and the returns they were getting. This is hundreds of conversations over many, many months. And he would start to talk to me about the fees I was paying on my superannuation, what returns I was getting in my super fund. And of course, like most people, I had no idea. So I went and looked at it and I was like, the fees are this much, and I got a 7% return over the last 3 years, or, it just wasn't information that I was leaning into. And he said, that's ridiculous. They're such thieves. And these conversations went on multiple times.
So we go back to you're stretched. You're now looking after children. You're working a lot. And so you're hearing somebody that possibly could give you a financial boost.
Yeah.
Who's giving you advice. It's interesting because not all scams, intimacy scams are like that, are they? Some are more like, I can't pay a bill. Could you loan me some money? And others are more like, let's go halves in something, but there's no other half. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's right. Or let's put everything in your name, or let's put everything in my name. Or
yes.
Whatever. So he was very much about, and this whole time he's pumping my tires, right? And he's saying, you are one of the hardest working people I know. I want you to be financially independent. Let me help you. And when you're in that state of your life and things, you're stretched and you're working so hard and you just want a little bit of space and someone's offering to help you. And I thought, we were building a future together. Of course, I trusted him. We were in love. I thought, what a guy. Like, he's offering to help me.
Yeah, 100%.
I felt grateful, to be fair. And he's also saying, look, I could help you do better with your money. This is what I get with the family office clients. And I had a year's worth of confirmation that was true. And he said, let's set up a self-managed super fund. And I said, I wouldn't know how to do that. And he said, let me help you. And so he essentially groomed me through that whole process. And we took 22 years of career superannuation, as well as some tech shares that I had received through my jobs and some other savings, and we put it into an investment trading account, and he was going to trade that on my behalf against. Everything was set up legitimately. Like, he knew exactly what to do. And so everything was in my name. I felt like I'd done everything right. The bit that wasn't right was the fact that he was a criminal and he was doing it to wash some money for himself. So it never went into a trading account in my name. It went into a trading account in his name. And that's how he washed the money through. And I never saw that money again. It was $317,000.
Wow. I can only imagine two moments for you. One, seeing that clip and then hearing the police confirm it. And then two, the realisation you must have made a very quick connection to your own money.
Yeah, it wasn't the first thing I thought of. It was really my concern over him, because I thought they'd made a mistake. I just couldn't quite comprehend what was going on. And I was like, there's a mistake. And then the police spoke to me, and that's when it dawned on me that he had all my money, because they were saying it was superannuation fraud and some other fraud. And I said, do you think I'll get my money back? And the detective, he said to me, I don't think so. But we didn't, I didn't know this. There was a 3-year criminal process.
And did they tell you straight away that there were other women involved?
Well, it wasn't just women. There were many people and men. Yeah, it was.
Because he was obviously then selling his services, saying, I can help you refocus your superannuation.
Well, no, he was a different person for everyone.
Oh,
so
really?
He had these different characters and these different movies for every other victim. So for one person, he was a barrister. For another person, he was a triathlete. For another person, he was a business strategist. So he's got these different movies for everybody. And it was all based on what they needed in their life at that time, and he became that.
Wow.
So
I can't even imagine being more than one person, because I have to say, Tracy, I survive a day.
Yeah.
No, I do. I get up and there's so much going on in my life.
Yeah.
I sometimes say to people, what day is it today?
Yeah.
I couldn't hold up that amount of characters if I tried.
The lies. I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know how he did it.
Did they find out that did he have multiple phones?
I believe so. He just had multiple personalities, really.
And so he was able to live in these personalities.
Yeah. So for me, and he never. This is the crazy thing. Like, he never slipped up, never, not once.
And there was never an
Everything matched.
interaction with anyone else?
There were a few, but they were brief. They were fleeting. He was very careful about keeping people apart. I did meet his supposed CEO. I met a friend. I met a guy he grew up with. I met his brother-in-law. I spoke to people on the phone. So there were interactions. And, he must have been shitting himself that someone was going to call him Hamish, because I was the only one that had Max. No one else knew Max. Everyone else knew him as some version of Hamish.
Wow, so why did he call himself Max to you?
I think he was creating a new profile at the time that he met me. And, these letters that were in his letterbox was him, creating this new profile with business documents and things like that to get a new passport. I think he had multiple passports. So and I didn't know all of this. I mean, it's been 8 years now, so I've uncovered a lot, and especially through the podcast, Who the Hell is Hamish, that helped. But at the time, the police were pretty vague with their information because they had to be, and it was sort of like multiple victims, millions of dollars.
Who busted him?
As in which victim?
Yeah.
I don't know the name of the victim, but I believe there was a complaint made, and the detective looked at the complaint, and in looking at the complaint started to uncover a bit more and found another 2 victims. So the arrest was made on the statements of 3 of the victims, and then they pushed out the video to media
and more
in the hope that more victims would come forward. And that's how I found out. That's how the rest of the victims found out. There were many, many more victims that chose not to make a statement or be part of the case. So it's many, many more millions of dollars have been lost.
Was he 41?
No. I think he was like 47 or 46 or something like that. In fact, that was what was so confusing at the time. So the headlines that I was seeing attached to this video were things like Bondi businessman 47 superannuation fraud. And this is where I thought they'd got it wrong, because in my head, and this is crazy what your brain does, in my head I'm thinking they've got it wrong, they've made a mistake because Max is only 42, And
but that's what he wanted, you to be closer in age. He had to create a character.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of people on dating apps fake their ages to be younger than they are.
I don't know why, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to find out, right?
Yeah.
So I just...
And did they find out, for example, when he had started to become fraudulent? When did he...
He's been doing this his whole life. He's really never had a proper job. So he dabbled in, futures trading and things like that. And he had a futures license at one point, but he wasn't very good at it. He lost it. So he's actually a banned futures advisor on a register. You can look that up. What happened with the podcast? So the Australian, there was an investigative journalist at the Australian called Greg Bearup, and he started to investigate the case. And through that and the podcast that ensued, he uncovered that Hamish's crimes had spanned about 30 years.
Wow.
And it was likely to be somewhere between $80 and $100 million globally. There is not one corner of the globe
that he hasn't had some touch.
So Canada, the US,
so somewhere along the
everywhere.
lines, he's not quite launched in his own life and maybe interacted with somebody and taken some money or was able to con them.
Potentially.
And realised, oh my goodness.
Yeah, or found some loopholes in the financial systems. I don't know.
And then became a master of really developing characters and ways of manipulation.
Yeah.
Wow. So you went through a three-year process. Can I ask, did you ever get some of that money back?
No money. No victims got any money back.
But he would have had property and he would have had assets.
Certainly not in his name that could be found at the time. Look, I don't know. It's the multi-million-dollar question: is where is the money? Where did it all go?
Where does all the money go?
It's either sort of like a Ponzi scheme, and he's paying off other people to kind of keep things moving, or it's hidden away somewhere. I think that's maybe something that we'll never know. There's one person that knows the answer to that question.
Is he still in jail?
He is still in jail. Yep. He'll be eligible for parole in July next year, July 2026.
So he hasn't actually served a long time, given what he's actually, the impact he's had.
Yeah.
I have spoken to people who have lost loved ones, and I have spoken to people who have had other major traumas in terms of their illnesses. And it's lifelong, right? And we talk about people who might have been victims of crime.
Yeah.
You can't put a price on that. You've lost your life savings. But I'm going to ask the tough question, how did you cope emotionally? Because financially, I think smart people can get back on their feet.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the next 5 or 6 years for you would have been hell. But I'm more wanting to know, how did you pick yourself back up emotionally?
It's probably been the biggest challenge for me, even bigger than recouping the money or rebuilding the money. Because you're right, I think with the right mindset, working hard, making good decisions, having the right support around you professionally, you can rebuild a level of wealth, or, you can get back on your feet, I think.
That's not to say you're not going to be angry about what you've lost, because,
Yeah.
look, I have been married and divorced, and I can say that there are times where I look back at that and think, God, starting from scratch in some ways financially is tough.
Yeah.
And you can look back and think, I could have been so much more wealthier and better off at this age now had I not had to go through that financial strain and whatever.
100%. And, I essentially had to start from scratch at 42 as a single mum. Had no superannuation, I had no savings, I had no shares, had nothing. So, but I had a job, and that I'm so grateful that I had such a great job, because that was my financial lifeline. So I just doubled down. But the emotional side of things is, for the first sort of year or two, I really didn't tell very many people what had happened. And back to our conversation at the beginning, I was just so full of shame and embarrassment. And I was really trying to work through myself what had happened. The things that you say to yourself are things like, how could you be so stupid? How did you not see all the red flags? And then you go into this state of, I can't tell anyone, because what will they think of me? This is a reflection of my ability to judge a character, to make a good decision, to bring good people into my life.
But dare I say also, you were grieving the loss of a relationship.
Yeah, that was another layer that none of the other victims were dealing with. And the thing was, because he was there 1 minute, gone the next, it was like a sudden death.
Yes, I'm going to say there's you just explained the guilt, the frustration, but also the loss of that companion that you had now invested into.
Yeah.
And you were hopeful.
Oh, I thought he was my person. I thought we were going to spend the rest of our life together, buy property, have a great life. And, I felt so at ease with him and so comfortable. And, not to have that, in a matter of hours and have to realize that. And, you'd go through these things like, sometimes in a day you'll think, I'll just tell them that, or I'll just call them and let them know. And then I'd catch myself doing that, and I'd be like, I'd have to remind myself of my reality. And then I'd feel really sad because I didn't have that person anymore. But then I felt hated myself for feeling so sad, because I was grieving a criminal. And even though I loved him, he wasn't a real person. And there was just
all of this emotional turmoil.
Oh, it was just so layered and so complex in my brain. I was really didn't know. I wasn't part of the world for a while. Like, I just felt like I was in this parallel universe. And that was difficult. But over time, once I knew his real name and I could research him and find out the things that he'd done, and of course the podcast and everything that was uncovered there,
that
helped me come to terms. It put like your brain doesn't like unfinished stories, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces, and you can't put that jigsaw puzzle away until those pieces are in place, right?
So that process of finding the facts and learning about other people helped you to put those pieces in a way, as you said, to process those pieces so that then you could actually process your emotions.
Yeah, well, it gave me the story. And once you have the truth and once you have the story, then your brain can rest, and then you can move on to whatever is next that you need to deal with. So, there was I'm going to say a year at least of crying every morning and every night. You know, there was a lot of therapy. There was a lot of really trying to psychologically understand how it had happened, what had happened. But at the same time, I'm working really long hours.
You've got two little children.
Or just the one, yeah. I've got a 6-year-old at home, and I decided very early on that there would be no tears at the dinner table because it's very difficult to explain lost superannuation and, you know, what had actually happened to a 6-year-old. And I thought, you know what, I have to get on with this because who's going to get her to school? Who's going to make her lunch? Who's going to get her to activities? You know, I didn't want her to be impacted and suffer. So
did you have a good support network anyway?
I had some very close girlfriends. My family lives in Queensland, so had very close girlfriends here, very tight group of people who knew what had happened. But I kept it pretty close because of all of the shame and embarrassment. I didn't want it to affect my career or my reputation and things like this. And so that was all very my world got pretty small for quite a while, and that's the way that I dealt with it. And I didn't have money to have a big life either. You know, I was just scrimping and saving everything I could to, you know, pay the rent and do what we needed to do. So, you know, and then over time, I guess there was just a level of acceptance. I had to give myself a whole bunch of self-compassion, which I don't think women are particularly good at.
No, I don't actually think anyone's very good at giving themselves care.
No.
And as you said, forgiveness.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes, right? Because we're human.
I know. This was a doozy though.
But there are people, I know people, Tracy, who have done doozies, big doozies.
Yeah.
Including myself, right? We all have doozies.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest thing is recognising that we're human, that we make them based on emotions.
Of course.
We make decisions from our heart sometimes, never from our heads, not really. When we make head decisions, it's logic, right?
Yeah.
But when we make heart decisions, there is no logic.
No.
So we feel that thing. And
it just took a long time to get there. And I think you have to go through that process. I don't think something can happen one day and then within a week you suddenly have that.
Not at this magnitude.
No. So I needed that. I needed that time to process and sit with it and do all the therapies and have the conversations and, you know, also going through the court process.
So you got to see him go through the court case? Yeah. Was it hard to see him?
I wouldn't say it was hard. It was, I mean, he didn't look at me once. He didn't look at anybody. He just sort of sat in his little dock and scribbled notes furiously. He didn't have the heart to look anybody in the eye. So,
and he's never contacted you, ever apologised?
Oh, no, he contacted me from jail. So after he was arrested, he called me multiple times and I received 5 letters from him.
Any apology?
Broadly, I suppose. The biggest thing with the letters was that he was really encouraging me to go and see him. He really wanted me to see him. And he wanted to explain some things that he couldn't explain in a phone call or a letter. And I don't know what those things were because when I spoke to him, I was peppering him with questions like, what is your name? What's your identity? Are your parents alive? Were you married? What job do you have? Like, who are you, basically? And he was just very offhandish and nonchalant with me, saying, it's just a name. Don't get hung up on a name. You know, he would tell me stories about how his parents died, knowing that my dad had passed. Not true. So that I would feel a level of connection and empathy and compassion with him on that level. And he knew that would tug at my heartstrings. You know, so he knew how to weaponize empathy. But I just don't think any of it was real. So
in listening to you share part of your life to him as you were going through this relationship, he then mirrored that back in some ways.
He was
trying to find those moments of connection to almost cement that rapport with you and that belief in him, which is something scammers do.
Yeah, mirroring is one of the biggest tactics. And I said before, he was a great listener. All he had to do was listen to what I wanted out of my life.
God, I'd be an easy scam then because I can tell a story.
Yeah. Or, you know, you just when you're getting to know someone, of course you say, look, this is what I want for my future. You know, I've been married, I've had the child, I've got the job.
Yeah.
Where do I see, you know, those conversations that you have at 2:00 in the morning when you're lying in bed holding hands and you're saying, this is what I want for my future. And he was great at asking questions. So he was very good at getting that. I'm a very expressive person. Of course, I didn't think he was using it against me.
Of course not. As you said, most people wouldn't.
And he just played it back. He just mirrored it back to me. He became whatever I needed him to be, to fall in love with him and to do exactly what he wanted me to do. And he did that with everybody, but in different ways. Yeah.
But you have turned what was a horrific situation for you, both financially and emotionally, into being something quite powerful.
Yes. And again, that's taken a good sort of 7 or 8 years. Because the first few years was really about rebuilding and getting back on top of my finances and my soul, basically.
Yeah, you had to piece it back together.
I had to piece my life back together. And in doing that, I've learnt so much in the process. And, of course, we had the court case, which went for 3 years. The podcast launched in 2019, and that sort of took the story to a next level. And then in 2023, I wrote a book about my experiences, which was published last year in 2024, called The Last Victim. Yeah.
And you got to at least, was the book therapeutic for you?
To a degree, yes. It was really good to have it all laid out and really just go back through that time and explore really with a level of rational thought, not emotional thought, in terms of my reflections on those times and, you know, who I was before I even met Hamish. There was a lot in the book there that was quite therapeutic to go through. And then what I've learnt since and how I've kind of come to terms with what happened and what I think about the world now and, you know, how I'm using it to help other people. So it was really good to have that structured. And, you know, it's a record of my life, which not many people have. And so, it was a really good process to go through. And I just see the book really as a bit of a warning siren, an educational piece, and also, you know, hopefully it's somehow a little bit inspiring and uplifting in terms of
your survival.
Yeah, like even if the shittest thing happens to you, you can still move, like you can still have a good life afterwards.
Yeah.
It does take a whole bunch of stuff and it looks messy and it's not Instagrammable, it's gross and it's yucky and it's hard. But
it's worth it.
It's possible.
And worth it.
It's 100% worth it because what's the alternative?
Giving up.
Well, I knew how I felt back then and I wasn't prepared.
And he wins. And everyone wins when you give up in these scamming things.
Yeah.
There's a movie that I watched and it shocked me. It was called, I think, The Beehive or Beekeeper.
Yeah.
Jason Stanton plays this character who's retired and he goes and works on this farm in America to this retired lady, beautiful retired lady, and he's just keeping bees in her garden or in her shed. And then she gets scammed. She gets on the phone. They tell her it's the bank. They want her to redo her passwords. She does it. She's hesitant, but she does it. Yeah. And within seconds shows her bank account being emptied. And in the movie, she takes her own life. Like she just is so distraught. I mean, obviously movies want to really dramatise. And this character, Jason's character is the beekeeper, goes out and venges, you know, he venges for her because he says people should never be taken, you know, and I'm championing it. In the movie, I'm like, go and get him, you know, because I think immediately what I felt was the distress of that woman and what she must have felt in that moment. As you said, you know, we talked about shame and at 60-something or 70 years old, having to start again would have been tough.
Yeah.
But I'm sad that they have to create a character like that because I like you as a character. Tracy, you're the hero in this story. You're the one saying, no, I crumbled. And I can feel it in you when you're telling your story that it was probably one of the hardest phases of your life to date. But you decided to turn it into a story to educate. You empowered yourself again.
Yeah.
You didn't let him win.
Yeah.
You said, okay, I effed up. I did.
Yeah.
And so do we all at some point in different ways. But you went, no, I'm going to help others to maybe see the signs. What are the things we can look for in relationships when we're, obviously people in relationships now, getting on dating and, on dating, online dating. But what would you go back and say to somebody? What would be a red flag, or how do you know when to go, okay, stop for a moment.
Yeah.
This isn't right.
I think there's a few things. There's some very practical things, like do a reverse image search.
Oh, I love that. I looked that up.
Had I have done that, I would have found Hamish McLaren, not Max Devita.
So we explain what that is.
Yeah, so it's basically when you grab an image of someone or something. It's really good for marketplace scams as well. So you take the image of what you're buying or the person that you're meeting, and you put it into a tool, and it does a reverse image search. So it basically uses that image, and it scales the whole internet, and then it will come up with where that image has shown up before, and you click on it. And for example, if his face had shown up as being part of an article from 15 years ago on the internet, it may have said Hamish McLaren on there, or it might have been a secret Instagram profile that he had.
And that's a good thing for anyone starting any relationship
Yeah.
or anything. If you're being sold something,
Yeah.
relationships are being sold to you.
Yes, that's right.
Just check.
Yeah. And quite often I say to seniors who are buying things off Marketplace, just do a reverse image search. And sometimes what you find is that image is like a stock photo from something, and you can work that through very quickly. So that's one thing. I say meet family and friends very, very quickly. There was no one that I could verify him against, even though I met people fleetingly and I asked to meet his family multiple times, and it was sort of always a future promise. It was very, very hard to verify him as a person, and I think you learn a lot when people are in their own, relationship habitats and families
family and
stuff.
friends are real.
Yeah.
They'll tell a joke or a story.
Yep.
But if they're not around, you've got to
Yep.
assume, why aren't they around?
That's right. And yeah, so things like that. And yeah, I would just say, just be cautious. I think the conversation around red flags is interesting because at the time they're never a red flag. They're only a red flag in
Afterwards.
reverse. And so what I like to call them are beige flags. And the beige flags you need to just keep an eye on. So if something feels a little bit off, or, a beige flag in the case of Hamish was he was very hesitant for me to meet his sister and her children. I'd met her husband, so I'd met the brother-in-law. But every time I asked, it was sort of a future promise. We'll do that next weekend. Of course, next weekend something came up or we couldn't do it. Now, that's not a red flag
But it's
until
enough
the end.
Yeah, but
it's
it's
a
enough
beige
to
flag.
make you think, why can't I see them?
Yeah, it's a beige flag, or there might be something else that, I'm just trying to think of examples. But there are a lot of times where things just feel maybe a little bit weird, but is it enough to call it out? Is it enough to make a scene? Is it enough to stop a relationship? Probably not.
But enough to maybe just at least check.
Yeah, just keep it in the back of your mind. Keep an eye on it. Maybe just see if there are patterns of behaviour. So in terms of his hesitation for me to spend time with family and friends, when that happened 3 or 4 times, then that's 4 beige flags that turn into a red. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think they're the things to be wary of. But I do think, if you go into every situation just looking for the red flags,
You'll
then
never have a life.
You'll never have a life. And he is an outlier. There are 1% of people in the world, probably less, that operate on the psychopathic level that he operates on. And you have to believe that. Otherwise, the world feels pretty shitty. So you don't want people to be scared. You want them to be empowered. You want them to have the right tools. I think too, like having your friends and family verify the person you're seeing as well, because quite often they see things that you don't see.
Yeah.
And they love you the most. They want the best for you. And when you're wearing your rose-coloured glasses, all the red flags are just flags. So they will often see things that you don't. So having that kind of to bounce off as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if your partner doesn't want to meet your friends and family,
That's another beige flag that you've got to start adding them up.
Yeah.
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 So you educate now, you go out
yeah,
and you are advocating. Let's go with that, because I
Yeah.
think that's more than educate. When you advocate simultaneously, I think.
yes, that's right.
Because you're helping people, you're empowering people,
Yep.
you're giving them information or facts, you're giving them hope.
Yep.
But you're also as I said, you're giving people the ability to stand up for themselves, to voice themselves. We
Yeah.
need more people reporting it.
Yeah, we need more people reporting this. A statistic, there's somewhere between 30 and 70% of people in Australia who get scammed or defrauded don't report, depending on which statistic you use. I'd say it's probably around 60%, which is a very, very high percentage. So if you're not reporting and you don't have that information and you don't have the full picture, how can you actually solve a problem? So I really encourage people to come forward, that you do not have to go to media. You don't have to do anything like that. There's a form that you fill out on ScamWatch, or you go to your bank and you capture the data. And then, the other thing I'm doing is, working with organisations and government to try and highlight where the gaps are. So victim support for people who lose money to scams and fraud is almost non-existent. So it is actually, and I hate even saying this, but it's actually better for you to be a victim of a violent crime in terms of the support that you get.
I know. And I actually think it's so wrong that we don't have support for all types of victims because they're a victim. That's the baseline.
Yeah.
When you're a victim, what you go through emotionally, what you then go through physically, financially, the impacts of all of those things, you can't put a value on what somebody experiences and what someone feels like. I think we need to, as you said, we need to fill the gaps.
Yeah.
And we need better support.
Yeah, and a lot of people who lose money to financial crime will never actually become an official victim because it's quite hard to prosecute fraud. Very hard to prosecute financial crime, especially when the perpetrators are sitting in countries a long way from here and it's organised crime. So it's very difficult to actually never become, I guess I'm lucky in a sense that I am an official victim of financial crime, but only because it went through a criminal case. Most people who lose money to an intimate fraud situation like me,
they'll never get it back.
They'll never get it back, and the perpetrator will never be prosecuted because it's seen by police and by the justice system as a civil case, not a criminal case. I freely gave you money and you did something with it that didn't eventuate into what you said it was going to be. So they have to prove that it's by deception. They have to prove so many things to make it a criminal case. So they'll often just say, look, this is a civil dispute. Go and, go through the courts yourself. Go get a lawyer. But of course, when you've lost all your money, you don't have money to go and pay a lawyer.
Yeah.
So
it's a catch-22.
It's a catch-22. And then what often happens is these cases just nothing happens, white-collar crime. And so the victim never sees justice. The perpetrator is never brought to justice. And so there's no victim status. And even with that, there is no support. But even when you are a victim of financial crime, the support you get is pretty limited.
Yeah.
And you have to navigate that pathway yourself, which is very difficult when the whole world as you know it has been pulled from underneath you and you don't have the money and things like that. So they're the things that I talk to. I talk a lot also about language and how we describe these crimes, particularly intimate fraud. Romance scams, even that bothers me. Like it just feels a little bit light.
Yeah.
And I think there are these sort of narratives and people sort of believe what they think about the person that falls victim to a romance scam. Even that word, I probably shouldn't say that, falls victim. You don't fall victim, you're targeted.
You are targeted.
And you're taken advantage of. And there are some media headlines that were written about me that said things like, single mum loses $317,000. I didn't lose the money. He stole it from me. And it's a headline that's written about me, the victim, or they would say things like, Tracy reveals all the red flags she missed when she lost $317,000. And I'm thinking, why isn't the headline about him, who is the criminal, who stole the money and professionally disguised behaviours intended to manipulate and deceive me.
That's right.
So there's...
Language is key.
Language is important. But I don't think they do it on purpose, the journalists. I just don't think they know. So that's what I'm advocating for.
Look, I actually think there's a model that they use and it's always about, you look at it in all crimes. They never mention the person who has actually committed the crime. They always highlight the victim in some ways, but in a way the victim becomes another victim in the reporting of the crime.
Yeah.
And so
victim blaming.
So
I think I do think, because I've done a lot of looking into this, and I do think we have come a long way in the way that we talk about victims of violent sexual crimes. I think there has been some progress. And if you look at violent crimes generally, it does often focus on the perpetrator. But financial crime is one of the only ones left where they still talk about the victim as if it was their fault that it happened. And you'd never say,
No.
you know, you didn't put a double bolt on your door when the thief broke into your house. You know, that you would never say that.
And you can't put a double bolt on our hearts.
No, not
You
on
can't.
that.
Now tell me, you are thriving, you are thriving because you're using this to empower and to educate, as we said, and advocate. Have you moved on?
Yes. I mean, I would say I'm moving forward.
Moving forward, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
This is going to be a part of me for the rest of my life. You know, I can't deny that it happened. It's just a part of me. It's not who I am, of course. But life is definitely taken a very strong hook turn in terms of my career and what I'm doing. But I'm absolutely loving it. And life is good. I just focus on rebuilding. I focus on my patch of grass and just making sure I'm in the best place that I can be throughout this.
3 things that you would now say to yourself or to others going forward. What are we looking for? And maybe make 2 of them things you would say to yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe make 1 about how to process it if it ever happens.
Oh, goodness. I would say it to myself, do not give away your financial power, your financial future and your financial security to anybody.
So go and ask for a second opinion or just control it yourself.
I think professionals are a great place to start, but proper professionals, do your due diligence.
Yeah. So if somebody offers you something, go, thank you. I'm going to go check.
Yeah, all of that, all of that.
That's number 1.
And lean in, really educate yourself.
Good.
For me, I think the mental load and how stretched I was left me financially vulnerable. But if I'm really honest, I gave it away really easily. I was just happy that he offered to help. And I never should have been in that mindset.
Yep.
I really should have been taking control over that. In terms of advice to myself, I would say be kind. Be kind to yourself. I've been very, very tough on myself through this, and it's taken quite a long time to get to this point. And what was the third one?
So now if someone is a victim,
Yeah.
what would you say to them?
I would say report it. What I do say, a lot of people come to me and they tell me their stories, like many, many people every week. And what I reiterate to them is it's not your fault. You are a victim of financial crime and, this is not your fault. And be kind to yourself. Like everyone says the same thing. I feel so stupid. My marriage is in tatters. I don't know how I'm going to rebuild. The conversations are very, very similar. And I say, I want you to know that you were targeted. This is not your fault. And you are a victim of financial crime. And I just keep repeating those things because for me, when I realised that I was a victim of financial crime, that is when things started turning around for me, that I wasn't just an idiot for believing what he told me.
Yeah.
I was actually targeted, I was groomed, I was coerced, and that's the outcome of those behaviours. It wasn't my fault.
So obviously time has moved on and you are back in the dating game, possibly. If that was me, I reckon I'd have a police, I'd ask for police checks. Yeah. I'd want to see, I reckon I'd be crazy mad the first time I met somebody else. And I feel sorry for the next person that I would have dated if this, was, I wasn't financially scammed, but I think when I went through my own divorce, I would say that you look at the world differently and the next person that comes into your life, the Spanish Inquisition comes to mind, you know. You're so much harder on them and yourself because I think you worry that you're going to be taken advantage again and targeted again. Was that the case for you?
You took the words out of my mouth because I definitely look at the world differently now. And on on many different levels. But my friends, you know, when I was sort of ready to get back out there, which took very long time, to be honest. My friends were like, right, well, we're going to meet them first and they need to provide 100 points of ID. And so it was like this vetting system, which we never sort of got to. But I have found myself in another relationship, which is lovely. It is with someone that I have known for many, many, many years. So that is a reassuring thing for me. I think it would be quite difficult for me to build that trust. You know, it would take some time, but I think that's part of the healing process as well. And I've been responsible for building that back up within myself. But yeah, it's tricky. I'm much more, I wouldn't say I'm cynical at all. I'm much more skeptical now. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And what I say in my talk sometimes is trust, but verify. So I would be doing the reverse image search. I would be going deep down into the internet rabbit hole to find things out. But thankfully, I haven't had to do that because I have known this person for a very long time. So
that's good. That's
yes,
positive.
Yep.
And you have published your book.
Yep.
And you're speaking about the book and obviously going to organisations. But any major new projects, exciting things on the horizon?
So many things on the horizon. The book is being published in the UK at the end of September.
Oh, are you off to the UK?
I am off to the UK. So I'm going over there. I'll be speaking at a fraud conference over there and doing some more speaking with some companies there. He has victims in the UK. So I don't doubt that when this all happens and media hits that more people will come forward, which is a great thing.
Yes.
So there's that. I'm working with the National Anti-Scam Centre on some projects at the moment, which I'm involved with a group of people, which is really exciting to be in that space. So that's the government kind of policy and solutions in that space, which is systemic, which is slow, but it needs to happen. And I'm currently creating an online digital course for parents of teenagers on teenage sextortion, because there is so much knowledge that is missing from parents about what is happening deep in the apps of their kids. And I think these conversations need to be had. So
100%.
Pulling it all together.
Right. As an educator for over 30 years for young people, could not agree more about financial literacy, cyber security talks with our young people, but getting them to understand what's online stays online. You can actually use it as your weapon of being able to be safe as opposed to being a victim. Yeah. Now, I do have to ask this. This has come to me after you've spoken because I know. But has anyone ever approached you to make a movie?
Yes.
Are you going to?
Well, the book gets optioned. So they use the book as the basis for the movie. So it gets optioned and then people decide whether they want to turn it into a movie. The process is quite long. But yeah, it's been discussed, but who knows?
And if you had to pick someone to be you?
100% Margot Robbie.
I love that. Yeah. I was going to say Naomi Watts.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Australian actress,
yeah.
you know.
Well,
but Margot Robbie, yes, okay.
Love Margot. She actually went to the same school that I went to, but she's a lot younger than I am.
Okay, so we'll use this as a platform to reach out to her and tell. Because I think
she's amazing. So,
I do,
yeah.
And you're amazing.
Oh,
so that's even better.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe one day. You just don't know with these things; they take on a life of their own.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap on another inspirational episode of UThink. Be sure to subscribe, leave us a review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to dive a little deeper into anything we touched on today, you will find links in our show notes. And don't forget to follow us on social media at ImpactifyAU. Until then, see you next time.